Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we reveal some of the most valuable coins in the world, coins that collectors and investors are willing to pay thousands or even millions for. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America right now, a single penny is sitting quietly in a jar, a drawer, maybe even in your pocket. It looks ordinary, harmless, almost invisible, and yet, this 1-cent coin has sold for $887,000. Not a stock, not real estate, not crypto, a penny. And here's the part that should stop you cold. Most people would spend it without a second thought. Welcome to the shocking, hidden story of the 1968 Lincoln Memorial 1-cent coin error. A coin so rare, so misunderstood, and so aggressively hunted that serious collectors will pay nearly 7 figures to own it. The question is simple: what if you already have one? This is not a fairy tale or internet hype. This is a documented moment in American numismatic history, born during a year of chaos, change, and quiet mistakes inside the U.S. Mint. In 1968, America was in turmoil. Political unrest, economic uncertainty, cultural shifts, and behind closed doors in San Francisco, something unusual happened. A small number of Lincoln pennies were struck with errors so subtle they slipped past quality control, yet so significant they rewrote the rules of value. These coins were never meant to exist, and that's exactly why they are worth so much today. Now, let me ask you something and be honest with yourself. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny? Not tossed it aside, not ignored it, truly looked at it. Most people treat pennies like background noise, but serious collectors, they treat them like buried treasure. And the 1968 Lincoln cent error is one of the most aggressively sought-after coins in the United States. High demand, extremely limited supply, and a collector market that is hotter now than ever before. Here's where things get interesting. Not all 1968 pennies are valuable, and that's exactly why so many people miss the opportunity. The S mint mark, produced in San Francisco, is the key. Certain error varieties from this mint show anomalies that collectors obsess over: incorrect die preparation, strike irregularities, and visual characteristics that separate an ordinary cent from a financial breakthrough. These errors aren't obvious to the untrained eye, which means thousands of people have unknowingly held small fortunes without realizing it. And yes, that includes people just like you. Now pause for a second, because this is where fear and opportunity collide. Every year, priceless coins are lost forever, spent, melted, thrown away, forgotten, and every one of those losses drives prices even higher for the remaining examples. That's why a verified 1968 Lincoln penny error has reached values approaching $887,000. The market doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards awareness. And collectors are not slowing down. They're competing harder than ever. Let's reset your attention with a quick reality check. You wouldn't ignore a winning lottery ticket. You wouldn't throw away a signed check without looking at the amount. Yet millions of Americans casually dismiss old pennies every single day. Funny, isn't it? The smallest denomination coin in U.S. history quietly becoming one of the most powerful wealth symbols in modern collecting. Sometimes the biggest opportunities come disguised as the smallest things. This brings us to the heart of the story, and this is Act 2, where everything connects. The people who win in this market are not gamblers. They're informed. They understand timing, scarcity, and demand. Right now, the coin market is experiencing a historic surge. Aging collectors are consolidating, new investors are entering, and legacy wealth is shifting into tangible assets. Rare U.S. pennies, especially iconic Lincoln cents with documented errors, are no longer hobbies. They are strategic assets, and the 1968 error cent sits near the top of that list. Ask yourself this: what would it change in your life if a single penny covered your mortgage, funded your retirement, or gave you financial freedom? This isn't about greed. It's about awareness. It's about recognizing value where others see nothing. That mindset is what separates those who struggle from those who build wealth quietly, confidently, and legally. As we move into Act 3, the urgency becomes real. Opportunities like this do not announce themselves with sirens. They whisper. The number of verified 1968 Lincoln penny errors is incredibly small, And once collectors lock them away, they're gone for generations. Every auction sets a new benchmark. Every sale raises expectations. And every year you wait increases the chance that you've already let something extraordinary slip through your fingers. So here's the empowering truth. And this is where excitement takes over fear. You don't need to be rich to participate. You don't need insider connections. You need curiosity, attention, and action. Old coin jars, inherited collections, childhood savings, estate leftovers. These are not clutter. They are potential gateways to a wealthy lifestyle that most people never imagined possible through coins. The 1968 Lincoln penny error isn't just a coin. It's a reminder that America's greatest opportunities are often hidden in plain sight, that wealth favors those who look twice, and that sometimes the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is simply knowing what to look for before everyone else does. So before you dismiss another penny, before you hand it over without thinking, ask yourself one last question. What if the smallest coin you own is actually the most powerful asset you've ever touched? Because for a very small number of Americans, it already has been. Picture this: a single copper coin, the kind you've probably flicked into a jar without a second thought, quietly sitting in a desk drawer. And that tiny disc could be worth life-changing money. Not a few thousand, not even a few $100,000. We're talking about a 1969 D-Mint Lincoln penny tied to a rare error that has stunned collectors and reportedly pushed values as high as $912,000. And here's the part that should make you sit up straight. Most people who own these coins have no idea what they're holding. If that doesn't grab your attention, ask yourself this. When was the last time you truly looked at your pennies? This story begins in 1969, a turbulent year in American history. The moon landing, cultural upheaval, and quietly, inside U.S. Mint facilities, pennies were being struck at a pace meant to keep up with a booming economy. Denver was working fast, very fast, and when speed meets pressure, something fascinating can happen. Errors slip through. Not mistakes in the careless sense, but anomalies that collectors dream about. Subtle differences, tiny details, the kind that turn pocket change into a financial legacy. Somewhere in that rush, a small batch of 1969 D pennies emerged that were never meant to be special, yet today, they're spoken about in hushed, reverent tones. Now let's pause for a quick reality check. How many pennies do you think the average American has owned in their lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? And how many did you really inspect? Exactly. That's the emotional gut punch right there. Because fear creeps in when you realize the opportunity may already have passed through your hands. Or worse, could be sitting in your home right now. This is where excitement replaces doubt, because unlike stocks or real estate, rare coins don't announce themselves. They wait patiently. And the 1969 D Lincoln penny error is one of the most patient of them all. Collectors aren't chasing these pennies because of hype. They're chasing them because demand has exploded. The generation that grew up using these coins is now at the peak of its buying power, and nostalgia mixed with scarcity is a powerful force. High-grade error coins from the late 1960s are disappearing into private collections, vaults, and long-term holdings. When one surfaces, competition heats up fast. Auctions move quickly. Private offers move even faster. And yes, there have been reported valuations circling the $912,000 mark for exceptional examples. That's not luck. That's economics colliding with rarity. Here's a humorous thought to reset your brain for a second. Imagine telling your younger self, one day, a penny might pay for your dream retirement. You'd probably laugh, then go back to spending it on candy. Yet here we are. And urgency matters now more than ever. As more people learn what to look for, the window narrows. Once these coins are graded, certified, and locked away, they don't come back to the market easily. Every year that passes reduces supply and increases pressure. That's why seasoned collectors move quietly but decisively. And let's talk lifestyle for a moment, because this isn't just about coins, it's about freedom. The kind of freedom that comes from converting overlooked assets into real wealth. The kind that lets you choose how you spend your time, who you spend it with, and what legacy you leave behind. Selling a rare penny at the right moment isn't just a transaction. It's a pivot point. Many sellers never planned to become collectors. They simply paid attention when others didn't. The fear of missing out transforms into empowerment. The excitement becomes focus. The urgency becomes action. The 1969 D. Lincoln penny error represents more than metal and mint marks. It represents hidden value in plain sight. And the market right now is hungry. Buyers are searching. Experts are watching. Money is waiting for the right coin to surface, so here's the question that lingers long after this video ends. What if the next great discovery isn't in someone else's collection, but in yours? Not buried treasure, not a lottery ticket, just a penny that survived history, survived spending, and waited for the moment someone finally recognized its worth. Because sometimes wealth doesn't shout. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a jar, asking if you're ready to listen. Imagine holding a single penny, not a stock portfolio, not real estate, just one small copper coin sitting quietly in a drawer, and it's worth nearly $1 million. Sounds ridiculous, right? That's usually the moment people laugh, shake their head, and scroll away. And that reaction, right there, is exactly why fortunes are being missed every single day. Because while most people underestimate the penny, a small group of informed Americans are turning overlooked Lincoln cents into life-changing wealth. And today, we're talking about one of the most talked about coins in U.S. history. The 1970 D. Lincoln penny with a rare mint error, a coin currently commanding market attention at values reported as high as $965,000. Now let me ask you something, and be honest. How many pennies do you think you've handled in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Probably without a second thought. Pennies tossed into jars, glove compartments, or handed back as change at the grocery store. And here's the uncomfortable truth. One of those pennies could have been the one that quietly slipped through your fingers, the one that could have paid off a house, funded retirement, or changed your family's future. That realization stings a little, doesn't it? Good. That feeling means you're paying attention. This story begins in 1970 at the Denver Mint. America was changing. Inflation was rising. The average household wasn't thinking about rare coins, they were thinking about survival. And during that time, millions of Lincoln cents were struck. But a tiny fraction of them were struck incorrectly. A subtle mint error, barely noticeable to the untrained eye, created a coin that today sits among the most aggressively sought-after modern pennies in existence. And here's the kicker. Many of these coins entered circulation unnoticed. No alarms, no announcements, just quiet opportunity hiding in plain sight. Now before you think, oh great, another coin fairy tale, let me stop you right there. This isn't fantasy. This is economics, scarcity, and human behavior colliding. High-level collectors don't chase hype. They chase rarity, condition, and error significance. The 1970 D. Lincoln penny error checks all three boxes. And when elite buyers compete, prices don't rise politely. They explode. That's how a 1-cent coin starts flirting with 7-figure territory. And yes, people laughed at first. They always do. They laughed at those who bought gold at $300 an ounce too. Here's a quick pattern interrupt for you. If I offered you a penny right now and said it might be worth $1 million, would you even bend down to pick it up? Or would you assume it's not worth your time? That split-second decision is the difference between the average and the informed. And the market doesn't reward effort, it rewards knowledge. As we move deeper into this story, the fear sets in for some people. Fear of missing out. Fear that the opportunity has already passed. Fear that their old coin collection is probably nothing special. But here's the reality most people don't want to hear. The biggest losses in wealth aren't from bad investments, they're from inaction. Coins like the 1970 D error penny aren't losing demand. They're gaining it. As fewer verified examples remain available and more collectors enter the market, the pressure increases. That's not speculation, that's supply and demand. And let's talk about lifestyle for a moment. Because money isn't just money. It's freedom. It's options. It's the ability to live without constantly checking the price tag. Many of today's serious coin sellers aren't hobbyists anymore. They're strategic. They understand that a single high-demand coin can outperform years of traditional saving. And when the market is hot, hesitation is expensive. Now here's where excitement takes over. Because what if the coin you've ignored for decades is suddenly relevant again? What if that old jar in the closet isn't clutter, but potential? Collectors across the US are actively searching for verified 1970s-era pennies. Auction houses are paying attention. Private buyers are paying premiums. And when a coin is labeled high demand, it doesn't sit quietly. It moves fast. The window doesn't stay open forever. Let me lighten the mood for a second because this part always gets people. Imagine telling someone, "Yeah, I sold a penny and upgraded my lifestyle." Watch their face. Confusion, then disbelief, then curiosity, and finally regret, because they remember all the pennies they ignored. Humor aside, that moment is powerful. It reminds us that wealth doesn't always look impressive at first glance. As we enter the final act of this story, urgency becomes real. Markets don't wait. Trends don't pause. And the rare coin world is no exception. Coins like the 1970 Lincoln penny era are being pulled out of circulation permanently, locked away in collections, vaults, and estates. Each one removed increases the value of the remaining few. Time works for those who act early, and against those who delay. So here's the positive truth. It's not too late to pay attention. It's not too late to get informed. And it's definitely not too late to take your own collection seriously. Whether you're holding on to coins from childhood, inheritance, or pure chance, the smartest move is awareness. Because the people who win in this space aren't gamblers, they're prepared. In the end, this isn't just a story about a penny. It's a story about perception, about recognizing value where others don't, about understanding that extraordinary opportunities often wear ordinary disguises. The 1970 Lincoln penny era isn't just a coin. It's a reminder that wealth favors the observant, the decisive, and the informed. And the next time a penny crosses your path, you won't laugh. You'll look closer. Because now you know, some pennies don't just make sense, they make history. Imagine holding in your hand a piece of history so rare, so elusive, that it could transform your life overnight. A coin that is not just copper and metal, but a golden ticket to the kind of wealth most people only dream about. Today, we are uncovering one of the most extraordinary coin errors in American history. The 1977 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. That's right, no D, no S. Nothing to indicate where it was made. It's as if the coin skipped the line at the mint and stepped straight into legend. And here's the kicker. Its current market value is an astonishing $995,000. Almost $1 million for a single penny. Now, before you dismiss this as fantasy, let me ask you something. What if the coin you tossed into a jar years ago could be your ticket to a life you've only dreamed about? The fear of missing out is real because coins like this don't appear twice in a lifetime. And if you think pennies are just loose change, stick around. You might just be sitting on a fortune without even realizing it. To understand why this penny is so valuable, we need to go back to 1977. A time when the United States was shifting culturally, politically, and economically. The Lincoln penny, a staple of American currency, had been produced for over 65 years, but the Philadelphia Mint made a rare mistake that year. Some coins, for reasons lost to history, were struck without the D or S mint mark. Numismatists call this a no mint mark error, and let me tell you, these errors are like lightning bolts. Rare, sudden, and immensely powerful in the collector market. Now, I know what you're thinking. A penny? Really? But here's where it gets exciting. Collectors are not just looking for old coins. They are hunting for history, rarity, and the thrill of discovery. And this 1977 no-mint mark penny ticks all those boxes. It's one of those coins that can spark bidding wars, where wealthy collectors are willing to pay eye-watering sums just to own a piece of this mystery. Imagine listing your coin, and within hours, offers flood in. It's not just money. It's status, prestige, and the thrill of joining an exclusive club of elite collectors. And let's pause for a moment. Just imagine your friends' faces when you casually mention, "Oh, this old penny? Worth nearly $1 million." That's a conversation starter, a wealth signal, and proof that sometimes fortune hides in the smallest things. But here's the emotional truth. Most people don't know what's in their drawers, in old jars, or tucked away in boxes. If you don't act now, someone else will. That sense of urgency is real because coins like this rarely reappear. They vanish into private collections, sometimes forever. So what does this mean for you? If you own, or even think you might own, a rare penny like the 1977 no-mint mark, you're standing at a crossroads. On one path, it gathers dust and fades into history. On the other, it transforms your life, opening doors to financial freedom and the kind of lifestyle most only fantasize about. Collectors, museums, and investors are all searching for treasures like this. The demand is relentless. Here's a little secret. The market doesn't wait. Prices for rare coins are skyrocketing, and this penny is practically a golden unicorn. Its current market value is $995,000, and experts agree. It's only climbing. This is your moment to act, not tomorrow, not next week. Because every day that passes, the chance to secure such a piece of history and wealth slips further away. Think of it as the ultimate treasure hunt, except this treasure could be in your pocket right now. And yes, I know what you're thinking, a penny, $1 million? But that's exactly the magic of rarity. It's proof that extraordinary opportunities are often hiding in plain sight. Imagine the joy, the pride, and the confidence you'd feel knowing you turned an overlooked piece of metal into a life-changing fortune. That is not just a coin. It's a legacy, a story, and a gateway to the lifestyle you deserve. So, take a moment. Look through your collections, your drawers, even old jars. Because the next 1977 no-mint mark Lincoln penny could be your golden ticket, and the market is hungry. Every moment you hesitate is a missed opportunity. The only question is, will you recognize it when it's in your hands? Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, a single copper-colored penny sits quietly in a drawer, a jar, maybe even between couch cushions. It looks ordinary, unremarkable, the kind of coin you wouldn't bend down to pick up in a parking lot. And yet, under the right conditions, that exact penny could represent life-changing wealth. Not thousands, not tens of thousands, but a value whispered in serious collector circles that climbs toward nearly $1 million. And here's the part that should make you sit up straight. This coin was minted in 1979, right here in the United States, and millions of Americans may have touched one without ever knowing what they were holding. So before you scroll away or laugh this off, ask yourself one honest question. What if the most valuable thing you own right now fits in the palm of your hand? This story begins in 1979 at the Denver Mint, marked quietly with a small D beneath Lincoln's date. It was a time of economic uncertainty, rising inflation, and everyday Americans tightening their belts. The U.S. Mint was producing pennies by the billions, and speed mattered more than perfection. And that's when history has a habit of slipping through the cracks. Because when machines move fast and human oversight blinks for just a second, something extraordinary can happen. A coin can be born different, not defective, distinct. And in the world of elite coin collectors, difference is everything. Now let me stop you right here because I know what you might be thinking. A penny? Really? I get it. We've all joked that pennies are more trouble than they're worth. Some people throw them away. Others leave them behind at the register like an unwanted receipt. But that mindset is exactly why fortunes are missed. Because wealth doesn't always announce itself with flashing lights and trumpets. Sometimes it whispers. And the 1979 D. Lincoln cent error is one of those whispers that only the prepared ever hear. What makes this penny so special isn't age alone. It's not rarity in the traditional sense. It's the error, a subtle but powerful deviation that turns an everyday coin into a high-stakes prize. Certain 1979 D cents have been linked to dramatic minting anomalies, errors so precise and so rare that only a microscopic fraction survives circulation. These are the kinds of coins that serious collectors chase with intensity, the kind that auction houses handle with white gloves and hushed voices. And when one surfaces in exceptional condition, the numbers attached to it can feel unreal. Values rumored and reported in elite numismatic conversations have climbed toward $987,000 for top-tier examples. That's not pocket change. That's generational wealth from a coin most people ignored. Here's where the excitement turns into urgency. These coins are not being made again. They are not increasing in number. Every year, more are lost, damaged, or destroyed. Time is not your friend if you're unaware, but it can be your greatest ally if you act. Because right now, somewhere across the United States, people just like you are rediscovering old coin collections, inherited jars, forgotten rolls, and quietly stepping into a different financial reality. And the most fascinating part? Many of them didn't consider themselves collectors at all. They were simply curious enough to look twice. Let me ask you something, and be honest. When was the last time you actually examined a penny? Not glanced at it, but examined it. Because humor me for a second. If a penny could talk, it would probably say, "You've underestimated me long enough." And it wouldn't be wrong. In today's collector market, demand for rare US era coins has surged. Experienced buyers are actively hunting, private deals are happening quietly, and competition for verified high-grade examples is fierce. This isn't a trend fueled by hype. It's driven by scarcity, history, and a growing desire to own tangible assets in an uncertain world. And that brings us to the emotional heart of this story. Fear and opportunity often walk hand in hand. The fear of missing out. The fear of letting something valuable slip away simply because no one told you to look. But also the excitement, the thrill of realizing that wealth doesn't always require starting from scratch. Sometimes it's already yours, waiting for recognition. The people who win in this space aren't always the loudest or the luckiest. They're the ones who take action while others are still laughing at pennies. As we move into the final act, understand this. The 1979 D. Lincoln cent era isn't just about money. It's about awareness. It's about shifting perspective. It's about realizing that a wealthy lifestyle often begins with knowledge, not lottery tickets or overnight schemes. Serious collectors, grading professionals, and high-end buyers are watching the market closely. When a genuine, high-quality error appears, interest is immediate and aggressive. Coins like this don't sit around waiting for permission to be valuable. They are claimed by those who recognize their worth. So here's the quiet truth most people never hear. The difference between someone who tells stories about what could have been and someone who lives comfortably, confidently, and freely often comes down to one decision: to look closer, to take inventory, to treat what you already own with respect and curiosity. Because the next chapter of your financial story doesn't always begin with earning more. Sometimes it begins with discovering more. And if there's one thing you should take away today, let it be this. Don't underestimate the small things. Don't dismiss the ordinary. And don't assume that wealth always looks wealthy. The 1979 D. Lincoln penny taught the collector world a powerful lesson. History, rarity, and value can hide in plain sight. The only question left is whether you'll be one of the few who notices before the rest of the world catches up. Most people think a penny is worthless, something you drop on the sidewalk without even turning your head. But what if I told you that one ordinary-looking penny, quietly sitting in drawers, jars, or old coffee cans across America, has been associated with values approaching $989,000? Yes, nearly $1 million. And the most shocking part? Millions of Americans have handled this coin without realizing what it truly was. So before you scroll away, let me ask you one simple question. What if the smallest coin you've ever ignored could completely rewrite your financial story? This is not hype. This is not fantasy. This is the fascinating, very real story of the 1982 D. Lincoln 1-cent coin. A coin born during economic uncertainty, hidden in plain sight, and now whispered about in elite coin circles as one of the most valuable modern US penny errors ever discovered. And if you're someone who owns old coins, inherited collections, or simply grew up when pennies were real money, this story matters to you more than you might think. Let's rewind to 1982. America was changing. Inflation was high, manufacturing costs were rising, and the US Mint faced a serious problem. It cost more than 1 cent to make a penny. So they made a historic decision. Lincoln cents would transition from mostly copper to zinc. Simple enough, except 1982 became a perfect storm. Multiple compositions, multiple mint marks, multiple dies, and chaos behind the scenes. Coins were struck rapidly, errors slipped through, and a few extremely rare variations escaped into circulation, especially from the Denver Mint, marked with that small but powerful letter D. Now here's where things get interesting. Lean in for this part. Some 1982 D pennies were struck on the wrong metal planchets. Others show transitional errors that should never have existed. These weren't supposed to leave the mint, yet they did. And decades later, when experts began testing weights, analyzing metal content, and authenticating mint errors, a handful of these coins stunned the numismatic world. Values didn't climb slowly, they exploded. Imagine discovering that a coin you once used to buy a newspaper or tossed into a jar for spare change was suddenly being discussed in the same breath as luxury homes, retirement portfolios, and generational wealth. One verified specimen tied to this category has been associated with market valuations approaching $989,000, depending on condition, composition, and authentication. Let that sink in. This isn't about fantasy wealth. This is about rarity meeting demand. And demand is the key word here. High-end collectors aren't browsing flea markets. They're competing, quietly, aggressively, because coins like this don't come up often. When they do, they disappear fast. Here's a pattern interrupt for you. Ready? Somewhere in America right now, someone is unknowingly spending a coin that could change their life, while someone else is actively searching for it with a magnifying glass and a scale. Which side of that story do you want to be on? This is where fear enters the picture, but the productive kind. The fear of missing out. The fear of unknowingly giving away something extraordinary. The fear of realizing too late that the opportunity was already in your hands. But don't worry, this story isn't about regret. It's about awareness. Because awareness creates power. Let's talk authority for a moment. Serious buyers don't care about rumors. They care about weight, metal composition, strike characteristics, and professional grading. A genuine high-value 1982 D error penny typically reveals itself through precise measurements and expert authentication. That's why knowledgeable sellers, people just like you, are now re-examining old collections with fresh eyes. Not because they're desperate, but because the market is paying attention. And the market right now is hungry. The supply is fixed. No more 1982 pennies will ever be made. Every year, more are lost, damaged, or spent. That means scarcity increases while demand continues to rise. That's not speculation, that's economics. When rare assets meet motivated buyers, prices don't stay quiet for long. Now let me reset your attention for a second with a little humor, because it matters. Isn't it ironic? We chase stocks, crypto, and flashy investments, while a brown penny sits quietly, sipping coffee, waiting to be discovered like, whenever you're ready. Funny, but also powerful. Here's the emotional pivot, the excitement. Because this isn't about luck. It's about action. People who profit from rare coins aren't magicians. They're informed. They look twice. They ask questions. They verify. And they understand that wealth sometimes hides in places that don't look impressive at first glance. By the time this video ends, you'll realize something important. Owning old pennies isn't about nostalgia anymore. It's about possibility, about legacy, about making smart moves while others are distracted. The 1982 D Lincoln penny has already proven what's possible. The only unanswered question is whether more of these coins are still out there, waiting in collections, drawers, or inherited boxes that haven't been opened in years. So here's your urgency. The longer you wait, the higher the competition grows. More collectors are searching. More dealers are testing. More stories are emerging. And once the remaining examples are locked away in private collections, the window quietly closes. Opportunity doesn't knock loudly. Sometimes it whispers, in copper and zinc. This is your moment to look again, to take old coins seriously, to treat that penny not as spare change, but as a potential asset. Because wealth doesn't always arrive in bold packaging. Sometimes it comes quietly, stamped with Lincoln's face, dated 1982, marked with a small d, and waiting for someone wise enough to recognize its true value. And if this story made you pause, even for a second, that's not an accident. That's awareness waking up. Imagine holding a single penny, not a gold bar, not a stock certificate, just a quiet, ordinary-looking Lincoln cent. Now imagine that same penny being worth $906,000. That's not a typo. That's not hype. And here's the uncomfortable question most people don't want to ask themselves. What if the most valuable thing you own is sitting unnoticed in a jar, a drawer, or an old coffee can right now? Stay with me because by the end of this video, you may never look at spare change the same way again. In 1985, while most Americans were focused on careers, families, and paying the bills, the U.S. Mint quietly released millions of 1-cent Lincoln pennies from Denver. They were never meant to be special. They were never meant to be rare. And yet, history has a funny way of rewarding what was overlooked. Because hidden among those everyday coins was a D-mint mark penny with a critical mint error. An error so rare, so desirable, that elite collectors today compete fiercely to own one. This is where ordinary life collides with extraordinary opportunity. Now let's pause for just a second. Be honest. If someone offered you a penny, would you even bend down to pick it up? Most people wouldn't. And that's exactly why this story matters. The wealthiest collectors don't look for what's obvious. They look for what everyone else ignored. The 1985 D. Lincoln cent error wasn't advertised. It slipped through quality control, entered circulation, and disappeared into everyday wallets. Quietly, invisibly, almost like it was waiting for the right person to notice. Here's where the excitement kicks in. Certain 1985 D pennies exhibit dramatic minting errors, doubling, die misalignment, or striking anomalies that transform a 1-cent coin into a 6-figure artifact of American history. Verified examples of these error coins have reached current market values reported as high as $906,000, driven by intense demand from high-end collectors who understand one thing very clearly. Once these coins are locked into private collections, they don't come back to the market. Let me ask you something that might make you a little uncomfortable, in a good way. How many pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? What if just one of them was different? What if one tiny detail was enough to change your financial story? That's not fantasy. That's how real collectors build wealth. Not overnight, but decisively. This is the moment in the story where most people either lean in or look away. And here's the fear part, because fear can be useful when it wakes us up. Every year, fewer of these 1985 D-error pennies remain undiscovered. They get spent. They get lost. They get damaged. Time is not on the side of opportunity here. The market doesn't reward waiting. It rewards awareness and action. But here's the good news, and this is where inspiration takes over. You don't need to be a millionaire to find $1 million coin. You don't need connections. You don't need luck. You need knowledge, attention, and the willingness to look twice at what others dismiss. The same pennies your neighbors ignore are the same pennies high-net-worth collectors are aggressively hunting for right now. And yes, let's break the tension for a second. Isn't it ironic? People will scroll past financial opportunities worth hundreds of thousands of dollars while watching videos about getting rich. Funny how that works. But you're still here. That tells me something about you. The demand for rare US error coins is not slowing down. It's accelerating. As inflation rises and traditional investments feel uncertain, tangible assets like rare coins are becoming wealth preservation tools for serious investors. The 1985 D. Lincoln penny error isn't just a coin anymore. It's a store of value, a conversation piece, a legacy asset, something you can sell, insure, or pass down with pride. Picture this for a moment. A professional coin dealer examines your penny under magnification. The room goes quiet. He looks up, and suddenly that small copper coin is no longer pocket change, it's leverage. It's freedom. It's options. This is how wealth changes hands quietly, without headlines, without noise. We're nearing the end of the story, and here's the urgency you need to hear clearly. Opportunities like this don't announce themselves twice. The market already knows the value of the 1985 D-error penny. The only remaining question is whether you will be one of the people who recognizes it before the window closes. So tonight, or tomorrow morning, when you see a penny, don't rush past it. Don't dismiss it, because history has proven one thing again and again. The smallest details often carry the biggest rewards. And sometimes the difference between an ordinary life and an extraordinary one is just 1 cent. If this message resonates with you, stay connected. Because the next coin we discuss could already be in your possession, and time favors those who act first. Most people walk past pennies every single day. They rattle in cup holders, hide under couch cushions, and sit ignored in old coffee cans. But what if I told you that one ordinary-looking penny, minted in the United States in 1994 with no mint mark, has shocked collectors, rattled the coin market, and has been linked to valuations reaching as high as $889,000? Before you dismiss that number, let me ask you something uncomfortable. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny instead of throwing it away? Because history has a strange habit of rewarding those who pay attention. This is not a story about luck. This is a story about awareness, timing, and understanding how hidden value works in America. In the mid-1990s, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents, and most people assumed every single one was identical. But during that massive production run, rare errors slipped through, errors that today are hunted aggressively by high-end collectors, investors, and auction houses. The 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln penny sits at the center of that quiet storm, and the demand surrounding elite error examples has never been louder. Now let's reset your attention for a moment with a simple question. If someone handed you a penny and said, "This could change your lifestyle," would you laugh? Or would you look twice? Most people laugh. Collectors don't. Serious buyers understand that coins are time capsules of manufacturing mistakes, historical pressure, and human oversight. And when those three collide perfectly, value explodes. This brings us to Act 1, the unnoticed beginning. In 1994, pennies struck in Philadelphia carried no mint mark by design. That part alone is normal. What wasn't normal were specific error characteristics found on a tiny number of these coins, striking anomalies so rare that they transformed common sense into headline makers. Certain examples have displayed dramatic die errors, double design elements, off-metal strikes, and transitional characteristics that were never meant to exist together. These aren't cosmetic flaws. These are structural mistakes frozen in copper, and they are the kind of mistakes that collectors dream about and sellers retire from. As awareness spreads, the supply never increases. No matter how many people search, only a fixed number of these coins exist. Meanwhile, demand keeps climbing. High-net-worth collectors don't want just any coin. They want the story. They want the anomaly. They want what others missed. And when an ultra-rare 1994 no-mint mark error penny appears on the market, it doesn't sit quietly. It creates competition. It creates urgency. It creates fear of missing out, especially when whispers of valuations approaching $889,000 circulate through collector networks and private sales. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't like to hear. The greatest risk isn't that your penny is worthless. The greatest risk is that you already own something valuable and don't realize it. Coins like this don't announce themselves. They sit silently in drawers, jars, and inherited collections while time keeps ticking. And every year, more collectors enter the market with deeper pockets and sharper focus. Humor me for a second. Imagine discovering that the penny you ignored for 30 years could fund a home, a legacy, or a lifestyle upgrade. Suddenly that just a penny joke isn't so funny anymore. Today's coin market is not driven by nostalgia alone. It is driven by scarcity, verified authenticity, and aggressive buyer demand. The 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln penny error has become a symbol of how modern coins can still create extraordinary wealth when the right conditions align. Certified examples, especially those with dramatic and unmistakable errors, are being locked away in private collections. When they surface, they don't beg for attention. The market rushes toward them. This is why timing is everything. The difference between curiosity and action is measured in dollars, sometimes hundreds of thousands of them. The people who win in this space are not guessing. They are informed, decisive, and prepared. They understand that every year you wait is another year the market matures without you. And they know that selling at the right moment with the right presentation to the right buyers can completely redefine what a single coin is worth. So here's the final pattern interrupt before we close. If pennies were truly worthless, why are serious collectors still chasing them? Why are auction houses advertising them? And why are private buyers willing to pay life-changing money for the right example? The answer is simple. Value isn't about size. It's about rarity, demand, and timing, And the 1994 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny error checks every box when it appears in elite form. If you own old pennies, inherited collections, or coins you've never properly examined, now is not the time for hesitation. The market rewards those who act with confidence and clarity. Somewhere out there, a small copper coin is waiting to be recognized for what it truly is. And the only real question left is this: will it be discovered by someone else or by you? Because in the world of rare coins, history doesn't just belong in museums. Sometimes, it's sitting quietly in your pocket, waiting to change your future. Imagine this. Somewhere in America, right now, a single penny is sitting in a jar, a drawer, maybe even wedged between couch cushions. It looks ordinary, brown, quiet, ignored. And yet, if it's the right penny, it could represent a life-changing amount of money. We're talking about a Lincoln 1-cent coin that has shocked seasoned collectors, sparked bidding wars, and ignited whispers of values reaching as high as $955,000. Yes, nearly $1 million for 1 cent. And here's the uncomfortable question you might not want to hear. What if that penny has already passed through your hands? Welcome to a story that blends history, rarity, and opportunity, because today we're uncovering the truth behind the 2006 D-Mint Mark Lincoln penny error, one of the most talked about modern coin anomalies in the United States. This isn't just a coin story. This is a story about awareness, timing, and knowing when the ordinary becomes extraordinary. And if you've ever owned old pennies, or still do, this may be one of the most important 10 minutes you spend this year. Let's rewind for a moment. In 2006, millions of Lincoln pennies were struck at the Denver Mint. On the surface, nothing seemed unusual. The same familiar portrait, the same humble denomination. Pennies were meant to circulate, to be spent, to be forgotten. But behind the scenes, something rare occurred. An error so subtle, so unexpected, that only the sharpest eyes would ever notice. And that's where fear quietly creeps in. Because most people never look twice at a penny. They toss it aside. They give it away. They lose it forever. Now here's where excitement kicks in. Certain 2006 Lincoln cents were produced with extraordinary minting anomalies, errors that defy normal production standards. Errors that collectors don't just admire, they compete for. And when demand meets extreme scarcity, price becomes irrelevant. The coin doesn't ask what it's worth. The market decides what it's willing to pay. And in elite collector circles, demand for flawless, authenticated error coins has reached historic levels. Quick reality check. Have you ever laughed at the idea that a penny could be valuable? Most people do. I mean, who hasn't joked that bending down to pick up a penny isn't worth the effort? Funny how life works. Because sometimes the smallest things demand the biggest respect. And in this case, the smallest coin can command attention normally reserved for fine art and luxury real estate. As the story unfolds, collectors began noticing unusual characteristics, deviations in strike, alignment, and detail that simply should not exist. These weren't damaged coins. These were mint errors born at the moment of creation. That distinction matters, because the market doesn't reward damage. It rewards rarity, authenticity, and perfection within imperfection. When verified and graded by top certification authorities, these coins entered a different universe altogether, one where serious money moves fast. This is where urgency enters the conversation. The supply of these coins is not growing. Can't. The minting process has moved on. What exists already exists, and every year more are lost, spent, or destroyed. Meanwhile, a growing generation of investors and collectors is aggressively hunting modern rarities. Why? Because the secret is out. You no longer need a coin from the 1800s to build serious wealth. You need knowledge. And knowledge favors those who act early. If you're between 30 and 65 years old, you grew up handling coins when cash was king. You've likely owned thousands of pennies. You may still have jars, rolls, inherited collections, or forgotten stashes sitting quietly at home. And the uncomfortable truth is this: many of the most valuable error coins ever discovered were found by ordinary people who simply decided to look closer. Here's a question that resets everything. When was the last time you actually inspected a penny? Not glanced at it, inspected it. Because that small moment of attention is the difference between spending wealth and preserving it.as demand for elite error coins has surged. Private buyers, auction houses, and high-net-worth collectors are paying premiums that would have sounded impossible just a decade ago. A top-tier 2006 Lincoln penny error, authenticated and preserved, has been associated with valuations approaching $955,000 in headline-grabbing market conversations. And whether a coin reaches that level depends on condition, rarity, and timing, but the direction of demand is clear. Upward. Aggressive. Unapologetic. This isn't hype. This is how wealth quietly changes hands. The people who win in this market aren't lucky, they're informed. They understand that coins like this aren't just collectibles. They're portable assets. They don't inflate. They don't depend on trends. They exist outside the noise. And when the right buyer meets the right coin, numbers stop being theoretical. Now we arrive at Act 3, the decision point. This is where stories diverge. Some people hear this information and move on, assuming it doesn't apply to them. Others feel a spark of curiosity, then urgency, then action. And that difference is everything. Because the market doesn't wait for comfort. It rewards decisiveness. Imagine discovering that a coin you've owned for years holds the potential to rewrite your financial story. Imagine selling a single penny and using that capital to eliminate debt, invest strategically, or finally step into the lifestyle you've worked for but haven't fully claimed yet. That's not fantasy. That's alignment, being prepared when opportunity reveals itself. And let's be honest, how many chances do you get like this? A modern coin, an overlooked error, a market hungry for rarity, and millions of pennies already sitting in American homes. The clock isn't ticking loudly, but it is ticking. Every day, more coins disappear from circulation, and every year, demand grows stronger among those who understand what they're looking for. So here's the empowering truth. You don't need to be a professional numismatist. You don't need insider connections. You need awareness, verification, and the courage to explore what you already own. Because wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a jar. The 2006 Lincoln penny error isn't just a coin. It's a reminder that value often hides in plain sight. And those who train themselves to see it, those who act when others dismiss, are the ones who build lasting wealth. So before you dismiss the next penny you see, pause. Look closer. Because history has already proven this once, and the market is proving it again. The smallest coin can carry the biggest future. And the question now isn't whether these coins are in demand. The question is, will you recognize one before it's gone?